Hello, we are going to take a journey through the different perspectives of how people view death. This presentation was written and presented by Ivan Karegeya. We're going to look at the framework on different perspectives on death around the world. We're going to focus on two examples, which is the Mexican culture and the Chinese culture. We're going to look at the brief description, culture's values and beliefs, purpose of the creative work in terms of messages or ideas. We're going to also look at the perspectives on death in the United States, the role of social and demographic factors in death perceptions. We're going to look at a TV series called the Original Series. We're also to look at the death and mortality issues to be aware of in multicultural societies. Perspectives on death around the world is that in cultural context, death is the end of life of a person, and the person is no longer able to perform the vital processes that the body performs, and it is considered as the way in which a soul leaves the body and the soul transitions to another state, according to the Art of Dying Well in 2019. And people have different perceptions around death, and people in the Western cultures are considered as death-denying cultures. And in Eastern culture, they believe that death is the way in which a person transforms to a superior form, to a more superior person. And in religious way, Christians and Muslims believe that one who dies goes in a glorious place due to their beliefs in God. The Mexican culture, they tend to believe that the dead are still living with them in a spiritual way, and the Mexicans celebrate what they call the Day of the Dead on 5th of November. They honor their dead, they visit their tombs, and this day started around 3,000 years ago in the Aztec tribe. And they honor their deceased with food, drinks, photos, so as a way of considering their dead ones to make them happy. Culture's values and beliefs. Mexican culture have many values and beliefs. They are interconnected to death. Family is the most important element more than any other thing, and they believe that if a family member dies, he or she still is within them. And they believe that death is one part in the wider cycle of existence, means that death is another life after this one. And the Day of the Dead is a way Mexicans use to cope with mortality and preoccupation of human existence, where they believe that they go in another existence. The purpose of the creative work in terms of messages or ideas. The Mexicans use creative work to provide messages about your life and after death. The Calvares of Jose Guadalupe Posada is one of the creative work which shows a funny, smiling, humorous and engaging skeleton to show that there is a happy life after death, and the people who are dead can really have a connection with us. And let's look at the Chinese culture. Chinese are different from Christians or Mexicans because they believe that life is ended by death. They believe that if a person dies, he or she, her life has ended. Their moral values and beliefs, they tend to believe that they have a connection with their dead, but in a way that they value them, in a way that they think that they have a value in their lives. Chinese celebrate the Grave Sweeping Festival, which can be considered as the Day of the Dead to Mexicans, where they replace the flowers on the tombs, make offerings, take foods to honor their dead. Cultures, values and beliefs. In the connection of their religious beliefs, people have multiple souls known as Hun and Po. That's their religious belief. And when a person dies, the Hun soul goes to heaven and the Po descends to earth, which means that there is what remains on earth and what goes to heaven. And the primary aim of this is to provide comfort for the deceased and demonstrate ancestral veneration. That's why they take care of the dead. Also, the family is an essential element in their culture, and when a person dies, the family takes 7 days in the burial ceremony. In Chinese values, death is a decisive factor. They don't think that there is an a life after death. Death is the end of life. And when death occurs, life is completely lost. That's why they take more time in believing in preserving and prolonging life. So the purpose of the creative work in terms of messages or ideas, as you can see here on the left, is the Chinese tombstone. There are 7,000 soldiers constructed in this tomb. This was built by the first emperor of China. This was a aim of to protect the emperor when he will be dead, because he will no longer be having life. So this was to make a complete universe to their king, to their emperor. So let's look at the United States. Americans in their culture where they value death more devastating, and they do not like to talk about it. They consider it as the way in which one disappears from the living. That's why the Americans fear death more than any other cultures. Americans believe that death is an epilogue to life. It is an ending that stops life, and avoidance of death by Americans is a crucial part in their life because it reveals their anciency, and it is also a way to acknowledge death as an integral part of life. That's why they don't like to talk more about death. And the role of social and demographic factors in death perceptions is that the society's beliefs or where you live is what shapes us towards thinking on a certain topic such as death. So the use of artworks, images that are drawn due to the certain society you are living in, they make people perceive death depending on what they are seeing. And modes of entertainment nowadays, such as televisions, TV shows, and what, are the source of a great deal of social controversy, in which people perceive what is death, how it happens, and so forth. And the culture we live in and the presses or our demography influence our perception about death, and in a way that as we live, people are buried, how they honor their dead influence us. And the values and beliefs towards death and afterlife make people have different sentences about life. If you are a Mexican, you will believe that there is a life after death, but in Chinese it is not the same. Let's look at a TV show called the original series. Immortality is the main theme. The main actors are vampires who are immortal. They live through drinking blood of the people they have killed. They are feared by the people because they are more powerful than them. So, in relation to death, is something which is seemingly a usual thing to do for their survival. The movie is all about feeding on people. It is just killing. So, this cinema affects people's attitudes towards death through considering it as a simple thing or such as something that is normal in human life journey that has to happen. So let us look at the death and mortality issues to be aware of in multicultural societies. End of life is universal. So expression of grief is the difference in which different people from different cultures perceive death. So the things to be aware of is in multicultural societies is to the ways of coping with dying, or how people cope up with the deceased body and the way of honoring their dead. And secondly, you should be aware of what to talk about when you are with the family of the deceased, because it may cause harm to the family. And also you should be aware of the roles of family members in the burial process in a way that they value, or each person has a role to do during the burial ceremonies. Also, you have to be aware of the beliefs of the family about what happens after death. If they believe in life after death, make sure that you really value that and you don't interfere with their feelings. and one should be able to do the right thing to avoid bias or violation of other cultures, values, and beliefs. In conclusion, people perceive death depending on their society, culture, or demography. So, depending on what we see on internet, cinemas, televisions, which give us a perception towards death, and in which way we see it as a normal thing, or depending on our cultures that there is end of life. So it means that one should have a belief and should not interfere with others' beliefs towards death. And different cultures have different way of giving honor to their dead. So it is better to consider cross-cultural differences so as to know how to manage another culture in terms of death. So these are the references that have been used. Thank you so much.